It's movie day. I heard a story once. We were watching a movie. No. Good morning. Welcome to C3. If you haven't been here before, you are in a new world. We keep things real here. I give a testimony every year to fell on May the 4th, so may the 4th be with you. Find your faith encouraging. And we've got some other funny memes here. What's the next one? Don't be solo this Sunday. Come to church and Star Wars Day and get a helping Han. Come with thee to church, you must strong, the force we are. We definitely are. And our volunteers, thank you. You are real troopers. Oh my goodness, I don't think we could do it without our volunteers. So happy Star Wars Day. We like to joke. We like to keep it real here. I am Heather. I'm Pastor Jean's wife, and I'm here to share with you my testimony, my come to Jesus moment, and the journey that I've been on so far. So get to do this usually once a year, give Gene a day off, but actually he's more nervous when I'm up here, so I don't know if it's necessarily a day off. More of a like biting his nails and hoping for the best. So that's life. But I was joking because we have the Star Wars thing. It reminds me, it'll tie into my story. When I didn't have such great days, it would be movie day when I used to be a teacher. So sometimes movie day that's a surprise means your teacher isn't feeling too good that day. So just an inside secret from a past life of mine. So as I said before, the beauty here, first of all, I just feel so blessed that I have the church family and the people around me that I do have to even, I'm gonna get emotional, be here today. So, I was very, it's an emotional story, and every year it comes out a little different, and doing a lot of self-reflection and telling my story, but also, thank you. See, we're there for each other. Is how wonderfully beautiful the journey is through all the ups and downs. And I often kind of go through the motions, but to be humbled enough to be used as an instrument to share my journey where I've been and to continue to is just really a blessing, and have the people in my life to support me along the way. And new people in my life who I keep running across who just surprisingly come in and just start enveloping me with love, and me learning to be open to that as well. So thank you for being here today. Really, it means the world to me, and I just hope to be that instrument for you that God has made me to be. So let me start at the beginning. The youngling that was born in California. I hope you enjoyed that. I've been kind of all around the country. I call it the trifecta of the United States, where started in California, ended up in New York, and then now here, the hottest planet of all, Florida. And so I was born and raised in California, and my parents were very, very young when they had me. They were teenagers. They were married, but teenagers, it's not really going to make it all the time. So they ended up breaking up, and I ended up living with my dad and moving around an awful lot as a child. And then he ended up meeting my would-be stepmother next door. They got married and started a family together. My stepmother and my father raised me for the majority of my life, and I did not know my biological mother for a very long time after that. And my childhood, to put it in a very easy nutshell, was more of a Cinderella story. And so there were a lot of times in my life where I didn't understand what was going on, what my path was. Really, my main goal in life was to get out, move out, and get out on my own, because that was my ticket out. So I really focused on education, getting into school, getting into a college, and working my way in that ticket out, because the lifestyle was just not very, what's the word? Encouraging. So I really buckled down and did everything I could. And so my stepmother, who was from New York, we went out there. I flew for the first time at 17 years old. When you're in California, you drive everywhere. So not like we had a lot of money to fly. So we finally moved to New York visited for the first time in October. And if anyone has seen the leaves change, it's really hard not to fall in love. And so I was like, you know what? This place looks really great. And my family said, maybe we'll move, we might want to move here. And I go, all right, feels like home. But the important and interesting thing about that was I didn't have God in my life. I didn't grow up in church, wasn't raised a Christian. My grandparents took me to a non-denominational church as a child, and then in my teen years, I had a friend who brought me to a youth group trip in Lake Tahoe. I don't know if anyone knows, if you know where that is, but I don't know where they got the money for this trip. I'm happy I got to go. I do not think my parents paid for it, but I was 14, and that was an amazing, first time I saw snow, 14 years old. Yeah, do not use knit gloves to make snowballs. You will learn very fast. That is not a good idea. So that was a very fun trip in that sense, but where that pivotal moment was for me is the first time I ever felt the Holy Spirit envelop me for the first time. I remember being in a prayer circle, and like I said, I was not really churched a lot as a kid, and I just remember feeling the peace of Christ around me, and just considering how tumultuous my life was, feeling that peace was so foreign to how crazy my insides felt that it just blew me away. I remember coming home, and I'm like, found Jesus! You'll never believe it. And my stepmother was like, you're not going to be some Bible-thumping kumbaya girl. You are not going back to church. And I was like, a 14-year-old girl who wants to go to church? Where else should I be going? And it kind of blew my mind. But at that point, it was a seed that would eventually bloom later on. That is one of those, I call them speed bumps in life, where God's like, Macy, stop just a little bit to reflect. And really grateful for that, because it really put me in touch with God. And I didn't realize that he would be leading me all the way through. For me, I thought it was me. Now I know, especially today, that it was not me guiding. So having had that experience and being kind of detoured away from it, we moved to New York, cross country, 2 cars, 2 dogs, 2 brothers, and I was in charge of the navigation before MapQuest. There's no Google Maps. Like, I had the old school map with the little scale, like the real way, like old school. Now it's great. Turn here. But Motel 6 stood across the country, and my parents had a lot of faith in me at 17 years old to let them know how far we had to go. But anyway, we made it, and I landed in college, moved out, and I was on my own at 17 years old. No car, no driver's license, and kind of like, good luck. So figuring it out, I met my best friend at the time, who had an older brother. You want to meet my older brother? Sure. Oh, hi. So love at first sight, and about a year later, Gene and I start dating, and the journey really began. So I finished going to school, finished college. He was running a martial arts school, and like I said in the intro, it's funny, we joined together, and we were both showing the world that we can make something of ourselves, running from our past, running from poverty, and really trying to prove everyone wrong. And we did a good job at that, but it was on anger. And we did that for a very long time, running an MMA school. And for me, it was great, because I've been beating up boys since I was 2 years old. You can ask my dad. My cousins were not, I was a force to be reckoned with even at 2 years old. And so falling right into that, it was perfect. So I've taught during the day, went to school, and helped Gene run the business, and we built that together and built a life. And in my family, I was the first one to not get pregnant in high school, to go to college, to finish college, to get married, then have career, then have a kid. So in my world, I broke all of those chains that everyone in my family had, just brokenness and just constant bad decisions. And I thought, yes, I beat them all by doing the opposite. That would bite me in the rear end a little bit later, thinking that my ego or me and my strength had gotten me through that. And so we made it through. We built our business. I ended up being able to quit teaching 7th grade social studies. No one asks me anymore now why I don't want to teach, and also why I don't live in California. So those questions have kind of dissipated as time has gone on. God is like, yeah, Heather, move. So if we go again somewhere, I'll let everyone know. But for now, I love Naples. I'm staying here. So, but we built this empire. We built these really great gyms, and we were vacationing using my in-laws' place and coming down to Naples. And there was a moment at which I'm like, Gene, I think we need to move here. And he cried, because where am I going to get my pizza was his biggest concern. Where am I going to get my pizza? I've lived in New York my whole life. And I'm coming from California, so I'm like, kind of like, get over it, let's go. But again, we weren't church people. I just knew it was something in my gut that said we needed to be here. So we went back, we sold part of our gym, 2 weeks later, we were in Naples, and that was about 13 years, almost exactly 13 years ago. And so we land in suburbia. We've got basically everything is taken care of. We have made it. And I'm in my early 30s and semi-retired, and we are in suburbia from a place where we could barely see our neighbors in our old neighborhood. And kids are knocking on the door, and we're like shuddering because this is culture shock. First of all, people asking me to help me with my groceries. I'm like, why? What do you want? Because I'm so guarded from being in New York. I'm like, the culture down here, everyone was so nice, but I wasn't ready to, it took a while to acclimate. So then we move into our neighborhood, and neighbors are knocking on the door, kids want to come and play, and we're trying to adjust to our new suburban life. And so I think Gene needs some adjustment. He really needs help transitioning from this isolated world in New York to living with neighbors, knocking on the door, and kind of a Leave It to Beaver environment. And oh my gosh, I missed the biggest part. Okay, so we moved down. We moved down here, and not a month later from moving down here, I got in a car accident. And what was important about that car accident, we got rear-ended, and God took away from me everything that I thought made me me. I was, like I said, running from my past, building my resume, everything I could do on paper to prove that I was worth something in the world. And it was building a gym, making money, just literally anything I could do to prove other people wrong. And it worked. And until it stopped working. And so after the accident, I couldn't teach anymore. I couldn't work in the gym as much. And God literally went from working out all the time to asking for help, bringing in a case of water from the car. And any of you know me, I don't like asking for help. I've got it. Instead of, Gene, can you come get this? And so while I was transitioning, trying to figure out who I was going to be now, like my whole identity was what that piece of paper, everything that I had accomplished had said. And now we're moving into suburbia and a new life and trying to settle. I have way too much time on my hands. And through this entire lifespan, I was doing a lot of drinking. And I held it together, and I was very successful despite all of the different incidents and different drinking that I had been enabled to do for a very long time by my environment. And so here we are. Gene's really struggling with suburbia. So I'm like, okay, where do you go for help? Therapy. Right. Okay. So I'm looking for a therapist. I'm like, all right, we got to go. I'm like, Gene, really, we got to fix him. Right. So we go in, couples therapy, and the woman meets with us for a few times. And then she goes, Heather, would you mind coming in by yourself? Yeah, sure. Because we're going to come up with a to-do list. We're going to fix Gene. We're going to come up with a plan because he really needs help. And in that meeting, it was not about him, it was about me. So, Heather, do you think you have a drinking problem? No. I have a consumption problem. If I could figure out how to control my drinking like eating ice cream, I'm just going to be fine. Wrote some things down, and I never went back. And there's no plan for fixing Gene. Apparently, it was my fault. That's okay. Then I go home, okay, therapy, she doesn't know what she's talking about. We need to go somewhere else. And so I kind of dug back into my childhood and that seed from when I was 14 in my childhood. I was like, you know what? Community. That's what kept coming to me. I'm like, think we need community. So let's go to church. Gene is a recovering Catholic, so he grew up in church. And we were kind of very spiritual together in our own journey. So we dug back and we're like, you know what? Community. We need more people around us because these neighbors, they're not enough. We need to actually get involved in something. And so we start Googling churches, and we found one. And things happened where we didn't end up going there. And so when we found this one, it was kind of choose your own adventure at the time, where there was the old people service and then the young people service with the guy with tattoos. I'm like, we're home. And it was at 11:15 a.m. It was the latest service in Southwest Florida. It was wonderful because I could drink and stay up late, sleep in, and roll into church right on time, or maybe a couple minutes late. And that quickly changed because the pastor figured out what we did for a living. Gene used to play music, and I was in business, and so he got voluntold onto the worship team, and I got voluntold onto the board, and we never left. So we get involved. We finally find the church, and I'm like, all right, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it right. And so they start with embrace groups. So I sign us up because I want to be a good little steward. I'm like, we're getting involved. And so I sign us up, and I tell Gene, we're going to this embrace group. And he goes, we already go to church every Sunday. Why are we going another day? Now that you know him, it's even funnier. He's like, why are you dragging me to church on a Monday on top of that? Like, once is enough. Like, well, if we're going to do it, we should get to know people, right? And so we go to the embrace groups. And because we were also still running our gyms at the time. So we had to leave from work, go do this embrace group. And we've come very far from them because now he is the lead pastor from, I only go to church on Sundays, so I don't need to be there any other day. So we know where you're coming from. We've been there ourselves. Real church, real people. And so in that embrace group, I met a couple of women who spoke about sobriety for the first time. And they were happy. I was like, first of all, you don't talk about that. You don't admit to it. And why are you're smiling? It's like, oh, all right. I was like, that was strange. So, but again, God kept planting these speed bumps and seeds in my life, and my drinking just kept progressing, especially with way too much time on my hands in a vacation town where you can pick something up at 7-Eleven, CVS. I'm like, I got to go get eyeliner and some other supplies. And my addiction was just really cycling out of control down here. And I thought I got it. This was one of those things where, like I said before, I thought I broke every chain from my family, that if I could just muscle my way through it, if I could use my willpower, I kept trying to use all the tools that had technically worked for everything in my life. I was run on fear and anger and just really driven by proving everyone wrong, not realizing that this was something I couldn't handle on my own. And it kept spiraling out of control, and I was so grateful for the women that were in there, because when I needed to get help or ask, okay, so if you can stop for that long, maybe you can help me kind of at least negotiate, maybe like a couple times a year, like kind of help me bring me some solutions. And so they brought me into Fellowship of Recovery, and one of those women would end up being my first sponsor. And there were certain meetings in the morning. Now, again, I really don't have a schedule. I'm semi-retired in my early 30s. And I said, I'm not a morning person. She goes, now you are. So I went for a while, and I still thought I had it. And I went into the rooms, got my Bible, got my coin, and told my pastor and my husband, leave me alone. I'm doing this. Like, the kind of get off me. Like, here you go. I presented all of the tools to show them, or at least make it seem like I was doing the work. But inside, I really still didn't think that it was really, truly a problem. And because for me, as I said before, one of the hardest things for me to do is ask for help, which most of us do, but especially me. I think it's my largest character defect, is knowing when my limit is and when to ask for help. And especially in this particular case, I didn't realize that it was a disease and that I couldn't do it alone. And being self-sufficient from the time I was very young, really in the household that I was in, I was taking care of myself. I was kind of a parent at 14, a second mom. And so I was really just used to taking care of things on my own. And the thing about self-sufficiency is it turns into insanity, where you keep doing the same things over and over again, expecting different results. And for me, it kept resulting in the same thing. And so I finally realized, by the love and the grace and compassion and empathy of the people around me, that this was bigger than I could handle on my own. And I'll never forget, toward the end, I was kind of straddling. I was going to meetings. I was meeting with my pastor, and I couldn't get it, because I thought I could kind of live in both worlds. And what had happened is I built this gilded cage of protection. And one thing I noticed in Naples is people are really good at building really big wall around themselves. And the more they have, the more they can build a bigger moat, a bigger wall, and make it look like you're okay. It was really good at dressing up and making you think, I got it. I'm okay, leave me alone. Like just, that facade. And after a while, it just didn't work. And living these two different people, essentially, was making me feel just very suicidal inside, because I kept disappointing all the people that I loved. I didn't know how to stop. Someone like me in my economics, situation shouldn't have these problems. And I just couldn't get my head around it. And when you don't want to live, but you won't go through with it, and you're hurting the people around you, it's just that you start spiraling. And so I'll never forget the last day that I remember I was out and about. I couldn't stop there was no way I could not stop by a place and pick something up to drink on my way home. And I finally got home. Of course, my family knew what had happened, and they were done. They didn't talk to me at all. And for me, Gene and I are best friends. Like, we talk all the time. If he's silent, I'm like, oh no, what'd I do? But same thing. Silence is really, that's when we know we're really disappointed. And I was at the edge of any solution. And it was at that night I finally was just fully alone in my thoughts. I couldn't call a pastor. It was too late at night. Couldn't call anyone. And I finally heard what everyone around me was telling me, including God, was to get on my knees and fully surrender. And that was April 30th, 2014, that I finally hit my knees, told God, I just can't do this anymore. Like, help, and threw my head down on our fake hardwood floor, whatever it's made out of, just bursting in tears, realizing, can you help me with this? And it was truly at that moment, the compulsion to drink just was miraculously lifted, just gone. And the work wasn't necessarily done, but that moment of finally asking God to enter and just heal that from me was the most miraculous experience, because I've been baptized a couple of times. And that song, the Redeemed song, that is near and dear to my heart, because one of the first songs I prayed to God and asked, hey, should I get baptized? Like, no, Heather, you don't need baptism. You're special somehow. So I turned on my car radio. This song came on, kind of like the radio, God speaking to me through my car. And so I had gone through a couple of water baptisms. I'd gone through the motions of them, but I hadn't truly surrendered and let the Holy Spirit really come in and help change me from the inside out. And so although I had gone through that, the second spiritual awakening, that moment, that final baptism happened in that moment. And so now over 11 years, that was Wednesday, 11 years sober. And to be able to walk this journey, it was just the beginning, because, okay, the compulsion was gone, but now I have all the wreckage, all of the things that I had done, and putting myself back together again. Okay, now that this isn't part of my life, now what? And really putting in the tools and digging into not just church and my fellowship, because recovery and church are two sides of the same coin for me. I can't have one without the other. And for those of you who don't know, the 12-step program is based on the Bible. It's based on the Sermon on the Mount, Book of James, and 1 Corinthians. And so when we go in there, they mirror each other. And so for me, one can't have, they're not apart from, they're a part of one another. And I learned about serving, about digging in, and really start reprogramming my life and putting it back together and picking up and putting back together the pieces of my life that I had broken and the people that I'd hurt along the way. And so in the steps, for us, steps 1 through 3, we have to admit that we have a problem, and it's a we, because it's not I, because it doesn't work. And we have to turn our life and care over to God. And for me, my free will was given to me to be able to do with it what I will. And I keep breaking this toy, God, can you help me with it? So I have to surrender that to him. And then in our steps 4 through 6, that's inventory. We're going to talk a little bit about inventory today, where you have to go through and look at all of the people that you're mad at, all of your resentments and wrongdoings, and then turn them around and see what you did wrong, which is very humbling, and then look at your character defects. And so once that's done, then with 7 through 9, you keep working at your character defects and then start making your amends to the people around you. And then our steps 10 through 12 are that daily reprieve, where you're praying, taking self-inventory, and really continuing working and praying and keeping that relationship with God intact, because it is a daily reprieve. It is a disease, and for me, it is progressive. And if I'm not on it, I can definitely fall back into my old habits. And so I have to be very vigilant. And those around me, again, I'm going to talk a little bit more about this today. Those around me know when I'm kind of veering off my path, my spiritual path, because some of those little character defects start bubbling up, which I will go into. So for my addiction, where I lay that as far as, especially for church, because I know not everyone here has an addiction problem. Some people have. Everyone in this world, because we are not perfect, Only Jesus is perfect. Everyone has a vice. Everyone has a sin. No one is perfect. And so when you're able to look at that and hand it over to God, it is a day-by-day process. And one thing I learned is how important it is not to drown yourself in the expectations around you of trying to fix everything at once. Because when you have a whole life, previous life behind you, and you're trying to piece it back together, it's like, where do I even start today? You wake up and you're presented with what it is, and you just start working bit by bit in the new person that you are and working towards that growth. And for me, that was church. It was a fellowship. It was having people. That's why I was so emotional when I came in. I really thinking about the people who are in my life and who have been in my life for these past 11 years, that I'm still alive here, standing here today. Because the path that I was on, there was no way I wouldn't be here, for sure. And for me, it's important that regardless of what vice or sin you're in, is not to try and change everything overnight, but start looking at your people, your places, your things. And in Christianity, we have a very fancy word for this. We call it progressive sanctification. I call it progress, not perfection, where yes, you start, but no day is perfect. You just keep working towards and building that spiritual walk, moving forward. And whether you're working towards your sin or towards, well, I'll talk about the fruit of the Spirit, but whether you're in your sin or in that, grace, love, and peace in your life, and being able to identify that every day. And not to drown in trying to change too much at once. And so for me, it's really important for me not to look at overwhelming amounts of trying to change because I'm very organized in certain areas, but through my disease, there were some closets, and I literally shoved my skeletons into the closets. And 10 years later, I'm still literally cleaning out parts of my house. So that is me laying down. I'm not perfect at all. I'm still working on a lot of stuff. And being accountable to cleaning up all these things in my life and having the people around me to find those blind spots and keep me accountable through that. Because if I am not moving forward, I can easily move backward, and I can allow myself to think that I'm the one that did this and not God. My pride can get in, my ego can take the best of me, and really start causing problems for me one day at a time. So I have to have that healthy reminder. And so this year being a big year for me, I found that I did as much growth and change in 1 year as I believe I did in the first 10 years. The first 10 years were listening to other people, which is really hard sometimes when you're an adult. I'm a grown-up, you can't tell me what to do. But listening to people who had walked that road before me, and really doing the work and listening and looking at myself and doing that self-inventory. And so when I joke about self-inventory, really, we're very good at, you watch TV shows and you talk about your celebrities, well, they should do this and they should do that, and this person, we're human. Everyone does that. But one thing that's very different that I've learned, especially in Christianity in my fellowship, is where do I fit into this? Where am I wrong? What's my inventory? Because I always say, take the speck out of your eye before the log out of your eye before you look at the speck of someone else. And for me, that's very important. So for me, Galatians 5:19 through 23 really sums up the old teacher in me, kind of the sins of the flesh versus the fruit of the Spirit. So Galatians 5:19 through 23 is when you follow the desires of your sinful nature, the results are very clear. Sexual immorality, impurity, lustful pleasures, idolatry, sorcery, hostility, quarreling, jealousy, outbursts of anger, thank you, Naples traffic, selfish ambition, dissension and division, envy, drunkenness, wild parties, and other sins like these. Let me tell you again, as I have before, that anyone living that sort of life will not inherit the kingdom of God. But the Holy Spirit produces this kind of fruit in our lives: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. There are no laws against these. And so in looking at these, if I'm falling into yelling at people in traffic instead of letting them go, I really have to look at what's really bothering me. What am I angry at? What am I not doing that's not Christian or healthy for me? Because if I'm falling into that and getting that adrenaline rush from something that's sinful, I'm like, oh no, I really got to pull it back over here. So I'm realizing I'm not too good for change. That's the thing about this past 1 year is I kind of crossed the threshold of a decade, which is a very long time. But I got called a young old timer in my meetings this week. But understanding that wherever I'm at, whether it's Christianity or in my recovery, you always need to be moving forward. And if I get complacent, or I think I've got it, or I don't need to go, help out my neighbor or help anyone out, or really think that I've got the whole thing figured out, I'm in trouble. And I find a lot of Christians where they kind of coast a little bit instead of really continuing to grow. And it's really easy for that and mostly I'm speaking about myself, but it's really important to keep an eye out on how some of those older behaviors might start creeping in. Like I said, my trigger is get angry very easily. And if someone cuts me off in traffic and I overreact, I know I got to go home and really dig into what's really bothering me, because that person is not bothering me. It's something else that's triggering that. It's not it's not that. And so Scripture says it very well as far as not being complacent, not thinking that you're more important than your work for God. So Romans 12:3, because of the privilege and authority God has given me, I give each of you this warning. Don't think you are better than you really are. Be honest in your evaluation of yourselves, measuring yourselves by the faith God has given us. And then Galatians 6:1-5, dear brothers and sisters, if any believer is overcome by sin, you who are godly should gently and humbly help that person back onto the right path. And be careful not to fall into the same temptation yourself. Share each other's burdens, and in this way obey the law of Christ. If you think you are too important to help someone, you are only fooling yourself. You are not that important. Pay careful attention to your own work, for then you will get the satisfaction of a job well done, and you won't need to compare yourself to anyone else, for we are responsible for our own conduct. And these spoke so much to me in this transition, because I thought, okay, I got 10 years. I'm going to conquer the world. Like, what's next? Digging a little deeper, Heather, because there's a little more you need to keep looking at. And so I really dug into looking at my blind spots and what else I needed to work on. So I got a therapist, I got a coach, let people in. And if I was having a bad day, I have a friend, we call it confessions of a treadmill. How are you doing today? I'm horrible. How about you? Like, okay. But for the first time in my life, I really truly allowed people in to let my vulnerable self be heard, so that I'm not doing it alone. So that when I'm having a bad day, I have someone else keeping an eye out for me. And sometimes just saying that day makes it almost go away, or reminds me to keep working forward. And it's only through the love of this family, of this church, that has taught me so much in allowing myself to be vulnerable, because it's very easy to start building those walls up again and think that you got it, because that's when the enemy or sin is going to start creeping back in. And the other important thing for me was to be willing to look at all of my habits. What do I still need to change? Because life gets good. You're like, okay, I got a job, things are good. And then all of a sudden, one bad thing can happen, or you get egotistical and you start, it's very easy to fall back. And so what this year really entailed for me as well is to make sure, I know we say it a lot, but having someone ahead of you and someone behind you, that discipleship. What I found that I wasn't doing this year is I didn't have someone ahead of me. And when you're the only one in the lead, I found it was becoming very dangerous, because I wasn't looking at myself. And having someone behind me who I'm working with or coaching or discipling keeps me in my place, reminds me what I still need to work on, and someone ahead of me keeps telling me what I should be working on and to be accountable to. And that is also something I would encourage everyone with in your lives, is to find, it doesn't have to be me, but find people in this church body who you can trust. Confidentiality is my middle name, so I'm a vault. You can tell me anything. Lay it on me, I got it. But what is, for me, was so important is to be able to go to somebody, to be able to give them that information, because I found myself finding a lack of trust of being able to give them my information and share that. I got a little egotistical, if I'm going to be honest, thinking, well, I'm in this leadership, or I'm this, or I'm that. I'm nobody. I'm just a human like everyone else, and I'm not too important to be able to get help or continued help. And so this year was very humbling, and because I got reminded to keep looking. The level of growth that I had this year was, for me, revelatory. I really dug into what other addictions were they're channeling. For me, weight, I didn't go into it too much today, but I've struggled with my weight and food since I was a teenager. That was my first access to having anything that made me feel good. I didn't have drugs or alcohol in high school, so I turned to food. And I eventually thought that I had a food addiction. And in this year, I realized, here I'm telling on myself because it's what I'm here to do, is I was addicted to the process of the back and forth. I would knock myself down, give myself a reason to have a goal, and then get addicted to doing the goal again. And then I would just go back and forth. I'm like, why? And I finally said, why do I keep doing this to myself? Am I addicted to food? No, I'm addicted to the process of the weight, of the cycle, a competition, of the actual cycle of it. And that was very humbling again, because now every time I go to initially want to go enter another competition, and I'm a very competitive person, those of you who know me very well, and I caught myself for the first time really digging into that. And so that's what I'm really encouraging everyone with is growth doesn't stop. And being continually able to reach out, ask for help, ask God first and foremost. Like there are days where I'm just by myself, and usually when I'm by myself, that's when those epiphanies, God finally, I can hear him because I'm a very busy person. I don't have time for God or prayer. And he goes, yes, you do. You need to listen to me. And so this year was very enlightening for me in that sense, and really, truly focusing on what else I need to work on and continuing to do that and making that part of it and also sticking to it. Because it's one thing to know what you need to work on, and it's another to actually work on it. And I know some of the people I see nodding your heads, like we tell on each other, we're like, okay, I had this goal, I didn't make it. Can you help me with the next round? And that I find is the beauty in this church, that I feel so blessed in being able to be a part of such a wonderful group of people and making amends and having forgiveness. And this year was also very big where my dad moved to Naples, and you've heard the beginning of my story. I didn't see him for a very long time, and he now has moved to Naples, and we are rebuilding our relationship together and working through that forgiveness and our different journeys in life. And I had to look at different things in my childhood I didn't know. I'm like, oh, that I didn't realize that that's the version of that happened. And because I didn't have a lot of parents growing up, I had to look at a different version of myself. Usually when you have kids, you're like, oh yeah, there's another little mirror. But when you're looking at a different person in the other way, you're like, oh geez, I didn't realize that I do that too. And the beauty of having my dad come in here and rebuild the relationship is to have, he said this feels like home. He came here from across the country, drove nonstop almost, and landed here. And he's like, wow, I'm home. And again, I can't express to you all how wonderful it feels that we have an environment where literally I'll accidentally say, I'm going home. No, that's church. It's not, this isn't work. Like that's really when I walk here, and I really hope that most everyone else feels that way, where you can just, let that breath out instead of being on guard everywhere in your life and working on that forgiveness. So Matthew 18:21-22, then Peter came to him and asked, Lord, how often should I forgive someone who sins against me? He says 7 times. Not 7 times, Jesus replies, but 70 times 7. Okay. And the Matthew 6:14-15, this is the end of the Sermon on the Mount. Jean loves this because you say the Lord's Prayer, but no one finishes it. If you forgive those who sin against you, your heavenly Father will forgive you. But if you refuse to forgive others, your Father will not forgive your sins. And that one stung, because with everything that I had done to the people that I loved in my life, the Christ forgave me is still so overwhelming. That's why I cried when I first got up here. I'm like, wow, I almost feel like I'm not worthy to be here. But he's, nope, use me as an instrument. And if he can forgive me, I can forgive myself. And if he can forgive me, I should forgive myself. And I absolutely need to forgive all of those along the way who I feel have done something wrong. And what I've learned through that heart of forgiveness is everyone's doing the best that they can with what they have. And it's my job to forgive and love them wherever they're at so that they can too eventually feel the freedom of forgiveness, where I can hear a name of somebody who did something wrong and that pit in my stomach isn't there anymore. And I'm just like, wow, I really truly wish them the best, or I hope that they find Christ. And the freedom of forgiveness is something that is so empowering and it lightens the load. Like I didn't realize how heavy I was until I finally let those go, or how it was blinding my decisions or steering me unnecessarily or making me feel down on myself. If I wasn't forgiving myself, it kept me in a cycle of self-sabotage and woe is me. And then I'm just being narcissistic because I can't forgive myself, and then I'm knocking myself down. And Christ is like, yep, stop. Can you just move on and really rely on me? And that's really what a lot of my growth this year has been, is really doing the next level work and not just going through the motions, and reminding myself that you have to keep working at it, really. And it's not always easy, but with the love of everyone around me and the wonderful people God has put in my life, I'm so blessed. And the interesting thing about forgiveness that no one forgets is being able to forgive yourself. And one thing as well in that forgiveness is we have an acronym in our recovery called HOW. How do we do all of this? Honesty, openness, and willingness. Are you being honest with yourself and with other people? Are you open to that change and forgiveness? And are you willing to forgive and make that change? And not getting caught up in the what you should have done. And this is, I think, what I said it last year, but I honestly had to give myself my own advice. You put the next picture up. Don't should on yourself. I'm only going to say it once. That's why Jean's nervous. Don't swear, don't swear, don't swear. So I had, I called him my recovery dad at the time, and he said, Heather, stop shoulding all over yourself. I'm like, what do you mean? You should have, I should have. And I literally I knew it in my head, and I didn't put it in my heart this year. I kept saying I should have been here. I literally drowned myself in that, even though I knew better, and caught myself. And instead of that cycle and beating myself up so that I could go through another process again, I realized, who cares where it was? And I speak in bumper stickers. You'll hear it all the time. The rearview mirror, if you look into it too long, you're going to crash. The windshield is twice as big for a reason. And I know why God puts me up here every year to remind me of, actually, Heather, listen to all the things you're telling other people. Okay. And in that I realized how I kept knocking myself down and where I thought I should be or could be. And instead of, where are you today, Heather? Where were you? 17 with no car, no driver's license, like no job, to living in paradise? Like I really have to keep my life in perspective. And I'm alive, aside from anything else. I have a loving family. I'm sober. I have a wonderful church family, and I live in one of the most beautiful places in the world. And my newsfeed, because it listens to me, tells me every day that I live in one of the best cities in the world, in Naples. And being reminded of that, and stop wishing for a different past, because the one that I was given has given me the tools and the opportunity and the message to share with other people, to help other people not follow that. And it's up to them, but at least I know better, and it forces me to continue moving forward as we're all on our own journey. And so I can't emphasize enough how much I encourage everyone here to find someone loving and trusting to help you with those burdens, to lay them out, to trust them. It can even start with me or Jean. It can start with anyone, but finding that one person that you can go and just drop the load off, just empty it out, because it's going to be lighter for them whenever you're going through that. And even this week, I'm like, pray for me. I've got this other stuff going on. And every person I asked for help, it felt lighter and lighter and lighter. And having that church family to be there for us through it all, and that accountability is a life that I could have never imagined when I was sitting there at 14, feeling the Holy Spirit for the first time in Lake Tahoe, that my life would lead me to such a beautiful and loving environment that has just allowed me the opportunity and the humbling experience to not only change, but to be able to share the story and not be fearful of sharing all of the things that I'm still working on. I'm not perfect, and always reminded to continue doing that. And so the weight of my past sins keep getting lighter and lighter, being reminded and coming out into the light and sharing that. And so for everyone here, I keep saying so. I'm going to say so. Just want to encourage everyone here that wherever you're at, whatever your sin is, whatever your vice is, there's somebody here who has been through what you've been through. There's no accident. Someone has walked through it who can help you walk through it. Their message, if you allow them to help, and allowing them in, and let us be the church body and that loving family that's literally saved my life. And that is so important to me. So, and that we not only love you wherever you are, there's nothing you could have done, believe you me, in our walks that is going to surprise us at all. To lay it down, to know that we're here for you. We love you no matter what. You come as you are, but you don't stay as you are. And I thank Jesus every day I did not stay where I was. And he loves you so much, because if it wasn't for that love, I know truly I would not be here. Our church, so many things wouldn't have happened as a result. So I would love everyone to just be able to have that same beautiful experience with the other people in their life. And truly from the bottom of my heart and from everything that I've been through, and I'm going to go through, because life is life, it's going to happen, that I'm so grateful and humbled that I get to be here amongst friends and family in a loving environment that loves me as I am, as I move forward and continue to lay out how imperfect I am on a daily basis, and to be there for you as you have been there for me, that I'm here alive and sober for 11 years. Thank you.